Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of the Bear Down Buzz podcast. I am Joe Grassano, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Isaac and Eli.
Hey, I'm Eli Grimes. I've written some articles in the past for different entities. The way I became a Bears fan was probably, I want to say, around 5 or 6 years old. My dad kind of introduced me to the world of football, whether it be, starting in flag football and then make your way up the tackle, and you get interested in that kind of thing, and you start looking at the big leagues, and my dad was a Bears fan, and I feel like for most people that's how it works. You kind of follow in your parents' footsteps with their team, so it just came natural, and I've been a Bears fan ever since.
Sweet. And my name is Isaac. I am currently a writer at Last Word on Sports, and I'm also one of the editors there. And basically how I became a Bears fan was growing up, same thing like you, Eli. It was my dad. He was born and raised in Chicago, and we grew up, at least I grew up watching Bears games with him. And I live in California, so like I get a lot of people asking me like, why are you a Bears fan? You should be like Rams or Chargers. But the reason why is because growing up, we didn't have a team in LA, and it was just, the Bears was always on TV. My dad was always watching it, so I started watching it with him, and it really just became an infectious love for the Bears. And I really hope, and I think that next season is going to be spectacular, like amazing.
So, like I said, my name is Joe Grassano. I currently write for Last Word on Sports with Isaac. I also work for the Windy City, a fan-sided network website where I cover all things Chicago sports. And I became a Bears fan, much like these guys, because my dad. I played football when I was younger. I didn't play when I got into high school, but I played flag football. And then every Sunday ever since I could remember, I watched football with my dad. Watching football with my dad is definitely the core part of the reason I like football.
Topic number 1. Favorite Bears players.
Who are your guys' favorite Bears players of all time?
So when I was younger, I was a huge Matt Forte fan. I loved him growing up. He was everything that you can ask for in a running back. He was a really good receiving running back. He was able to, break off some tackles, and I really liked him in fantasy football as well. So that was growing up. And maybe a couple years ago, it was probably Khalil Mack. I remember waking up, seeing the trade happen. I was like, holy crap, like there's no way we got Khalil Mack. And it just made it even better learning that the Packers were the other team that were in the mix for him. And they traded Mack to us because they thought we were going to give the Raiders a higher pick. And currently, well, it was Justin Fields, because he was pretty much the only bright spot of the Bears team for the past couple years. And we'll see. I think there's probably going to be a new favorite player for me. It might be Caleb Williams. I just bought a Roma Dunze jersey. I think he's going to be legit. So that's just about it for me. And what about you, Eli?
No, I think Matt Forte is probably one of the best answers that modern day Bears fans can really give. That dude was the Christian McCaffrey of the NFL before McCaffrey was in the league. That dude could do it all. So that's a really great answer. Favorite wise, I'm trying to think. It's probably a mix between Peanut Tillman and Hester back in the day, because the earliest memory of being a Bears fan that I can really remember, is that kickoff return in the Super Bowl way back then. I wasn't old enough to really remember the entire game, but just seeing clips of Hester taking that back, just I don't know how to describe it. It just gives you the entire feeling of what being a Bears fan is, and the hope and the loss and everything that we've been through the years. So I think Hester kind of embodies everything that it means to be a Bears fan.
I would agree with you. I know a lot of people's favorite player is Devin Hester. I'm going to go with two defenders, Julius Peppers and Brian Urlacher. I was so much of a Peppers fan that when I played football, I wore number 90. I was also a defensive lineman, so that made sense for me to wear 90. But I also just like Urlacher a lot. I mean, it makes sense to like the defensive players because that's kind of what the Bears have been for their whole history. Plus, in the time I've been born, they've never really had a good offense. So, like,
Oh yeah.
attaching yourself to a defender makes a lot of sense. So yeah, Peppers. Although I guess when I was younger, I didn't realize Peppers wasn't always a Bear. Like
Mhm.
for the first couple years of his career, he was in Carolina. Then he went back to Carolina at the end of his year. He ended up playing a decade in Carolina. But before he went to back to Carolina to end his career, he was in Green Bay, which I do remember. That sucked to see him in Green Bay after he was in Chicago. And then the Urlacher thing, man, he was a hard hitter, and it was fun to watch him play. We might be getting back to that with Edwards and Edmonds, but who knows?
Not to go on too much of a tangent, but Urlacher was just the dude was a glorified safety playing at linebacker, or he just so good in coverage. That dude, he played like he was 6'2", 170 pounds. He was just so fast and all over the place. But like you said, he was a brawler too, so he had the total package.
Isaac gave a current favorite player. If I had to pick one right now, probably DJ Moore, just because he was the best player on the team last year. Although I do really wish it worked out with Justin Fields because, like Isaac said, he also was one of the most electric players on the field, but it just didn't. I'd go DJ Moore with my current favorite player, but that might change this year.
Yeah, there's plenty to choose from this year. I'll kind of give one too if I can really think of one. I think it really hinges because I think we can all agree that we all love Tevin Jenkins, but the
Mhm.
dude just needs to play a whole season and stay healthy because, in my opinion, when that dude is healthy, he's playing at a top 10 guard level in the NFL. We've seen it in flashes, but it's just a matter of getting out there and being consistent, staying consistently healthy. But I love
Yeah,
Tevin.
I would have to. I agree with you. Tevin Jenkins is really good, but it's like you said, he needs to stay healthy, and he hasn't been able to do that the past 3 years. And through the first couple weeks of training camp, he's not been doing that. So I have a feeling that he's not going to get the contract extension that people want him to get from the Bears. But who knows? Maybe those injury concerns don't happen during the season, but I doubt it. He's sadly probably going to get hurt in the season, which sucks.
Topic number 2. The Bears' offensive line.
I think that can bring us back into our next topic, which is the Bears' offensive line, because I look around the team on paper and the offensive line is just really concerning to me. And it's every position pretty much. We'll start with Darnell Wright. There's been reports coming out of camp that he hasn't been doing the best, which is surprising to me because I feel like last season he was one of our better players on offense. In one of my articles, I listed him as our offensive X factor because he was on the field the most out of the whole offense. He was on the field for, I believe it was about 99.56% of the snaps. And just to hear that he's kind of maybe regressed a little bit during camp concerns me. But at the same time, it's just training camp. I'm sure he'll be fine. But the biggest concern is the guy playing next to him, Nate Davis. I was huge on signing Davis a couple seasons ago. I think he was he was going to be really good for us. I think him and Tevin Jenkins were going to be one of the best guard duos in the league, and unfortunately, it hasn't worked out for him. I am glad that we traded for Ryan Bates because it's looking more and more like the starting offensive line is going to be Coleman at center and Bates at right guard. But again, it concerns me because we don't have sufficient depth behind them. And especially with Jenkins at left guard being the injury-prone player he is, it is pretty concerning. And I just want to get your guys' thoughts on that. What do you think we should do? Or like, what is your concern level for that, for the offensive line? We could start with Eli.
So I can't remember who it was. I just saw it recently, probably within the last hour or two, but they posted on Twitter. It's one of those big Bears, it all gets blended together on Bears Twitter. You don't remember who's who, but they said to keep in mind that before signing Nate Davis in the years prior, and you guys know this, we have been, or at least Ryan Poles had been desperately trying to get Ryan Bates on this team, whether through trade or free agency, and just wasn't able to get it done. Now he's finally on the team, and you're kind of seeing that shift from Nate Davis slowly, just from the Nate Davis to Ryan Bates, just slowly making its way, transferring. And like I said, I can't remember who brought it up on Twitter, but they said maybe this was kind of the plan all along because they didn't really trust Nate Davis after they signed him last year, and seeing how just inconsistent he was, whether it's not practicing or injuries or whatever. So I am worried. As for Darnell Wright, training camp is difficult to kind of see where players are at and whether it's just a result of being in a practice setting and you're not getting the full extent of what they're capable of. So seeing the reports about Darnell Wright coming out, it does kind of worry you, but at the same time, I think we did see elite flashes from him last year. So between all of the things going on the offensive line, I think Darnell Wright is a worry, but at the same time, it's probably the least of my worries. But as for center and right guard, we've been through the carousel for what it seems like the past 10 years as being a Bears fan. We've seen no solid option at center, and it needs to change, and I'm not sure it will this season, but I'm hoping that with the veteran presence like Coleman Shelton, we'll at least have an average to serviceable offensive line for Caleb this year.
I will attack the Darnell Wright thing first. So I don't think it's a big worry right now for Wright. He is going against Montez Sweat, who basically changed the whole Bears defense last year. So while you would like to see him do better, it makes sense why he's struggling. I think once we play games, regular season games, or he plays games, he'll show more of what he showed last year. The rest of the line is worrying to me. Nate Davis, like all you guys have said, has been injury prone and not been in the lineup a lot last year. He didn't practice last year at all in training camp. He is barely practicing this year in training camp. He's been hurt again, which is not good. I agree with Eli with the Ryan Bates thing that he saw on Twitter, but I've also heard other people say it. Brian Poles finally has Bates, and he's going to play Bates no matter what it takes, whether that's at center or a guard. So I think Bates will start at one of the two positions this year. I do feel like Coleman Shelton also could start at center. I think that I've also been hearing reports that both the centers, both Bates and Shelton, have been having rough snaps to Caleb Williams, which is very scary. We saw how that happened last year with Justin Fields, and that wasn't good. And if we can't get consistent good snapping to Caleb Williams, that's going to cause a lot of problems for an offense that everyone has a lot of high hopes for. Tevin Jenkins, if he can't stay healthy, then this offensive line is going to be an issue overall. And then Braxton Jones is good. He's fine for what he was in the 5th-round pick. Not that we can't. We haven't upgraded yet from him. Could have upgraded this offseason, but both chose not to. I want to more so talk about the backup offensive line because the backup offensive line has also been getting hurt in this training camp, which is not good. And that means it's testing the depth, and it just doesn't seem like our offense that Caleb Williams has any protection in training camp at all because everyone's getting hurt. And if that continues throughout the season, it's not going to be pretty for the Bears.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to look for at least one veteran free agent signing for the offensive line. Especially right now, like we haven't even started preseason yet, and we're already having all these injuries. And then also going back to what you were talking about, Joe, with the inadequate center height, like pitching the ball. I think we're gonna see a difference this year because there are gonna be bad snaps, and it's just a part of having a transition from new centers. But I think the difference was with Justin Fields, when that would happen, I would say maybe 70% of the time he would just roll out, either run a couple yards or roll out, throw it, a 3-yard pass. But with Caleb, I've seen videos of him where that's happened. He's had a bad snap, but instead of rolling out, he's really done a good job of setting his feet, finding the open player and throwing it. And it's going to be refreshing to see that, especially we're so used to Justin Fields throwing the ball to the sideline. It's never been down the middle, or he's always just ran like pretty much a lot of the time during 3rd down. So I think it's going to be nice to see. And then Eli, what do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree, Isaac. I think it's going to look. I will say that the offensive line, I think this offseason, there have been some additions made, but I wouldn't say that it's drastically improved from what it was last year. But you bring up a great point between the different play styles between Caleb and Justin. him being able to have that quick release, being able to step up in the pocket and deliver on time and with anticipation. But also, I think a bigger thing is the play calling. The contrast between what we've seen from Shane Waldron so far and Luke Getsy last year is that the route trees at the very least actually make sense. I think we all watched last year and we would see the all 22 come out afterward and we're like, what is even going on? Like we had wide receivers running into each other and you
Uh-huh.
know, I couldn't say enough about screen passes last year, so at least they'll probably make sense this year. But we've seen passes in training camp this year that have been at the first and second level, deep shots, slants across the middle, flags, whatever. We've seen all of it. So I think that's another aspect. And of course, the wide receiver room and the skill players all around are much more improved from what they were last year. So all of those things are going to help Caleb kind of succeed, even if the offensive line at times doesn't. So that's kind of where my head's at with that.
Yeah, you make great points. I do think Caleb will succeed. I mean, but you can only succeed so much if your offensive line isn't good, because at some point the rushers are going to get to you and you're going to get hit, and it's gonna impact you and not and hurt your chances of success. But hopefully the line can get healthy before the season starts.
Topic number 3, Hard Knocks.
The last thing to touch upon today, I think, is Hard Knocks, which started yesterday night. What was your guys' favorite moment from the first episode?
I really like that Bulls intro theme song for
The
Caleb
Alan
Williams.
Parsons project.
Yeah, and I thought that should have been like the first thing that we saw in the episode. But either way, it was giving, I got chills. I was so excited. But I think one of my favorite things that I feel like a lot of Bears fans are not gonna like was towards the beginning of the episode, they were showing Caleb making mistakes. He was throwing interceptions, and I just think that it's nice to see a quarterback, own up to his mistakes and not pout about it. It's training camp where we're trying to take this opportunity to get better. And by getting better, you have to make mistakes. It's just part of, you know, developing into a elite quarterback. Which brings me to when Nick Saban was talking to Coach Eberflus, and he was saying, Peyton Manning threw the record interceptions for a rookie, and it was like 28, I think. But that didn't affect him. And I hope that Williams has that same mindset where, it looks like, and when we were watching Hard Knocks, I could tell that he, obviously it's good to be upset about making mistakes, but at the same time, you don't let it get to your head. Go back with Shane Waldron or Eberflus, like, hey, what, I messed up. Like, how can I improve on that? But it's really, one of my favorite things to see for sure. What about you, Eli?
And it's definitely okay that you stole mine because it was really, to me, it was the most football-esque thing that we saw from Hard Knocks was the Nick Saban interview, because he brought up, let me just okay. It's so encouraging to see the Bears organization have a relationship with someone like that. One of the greatest college and just NFL, whatever, football coaches of all time in Nick
Mhm.
Saban. The dude has produced multiple NFL starting quarterbacks, and he knows what to kind of instill in these players for them to be ready at the next level. Seeing Matt Eberflus kind of be receptive to what Nick Saban was talking about in that interview and kind of adopting that to one of the highest tier prospects we've seen in a long time in Caleb Williams, just to see them kind of following a blueprint finally. It seems like there's some structure to developing a quarterback in the city of Chicago. So it was just great to see. And, there were plenty of moments from Hard Knocks, but I'm with you on that, Isaac. Seeing Nick Saban and just discussing a quarterback playing at a high level in Chicago was something awesome to see.
Okay, so we all agree the Nick Saban thing was great. That's the thing I was going to talk about too, but you guys have covered it great. So my next favorite moment was Theo Benedict, just in general. It sucks that he got hurt, but every time he was on the screen, it was great. Him singing. I mean, no one needed to see him singing in a Speedo, but it was still funny. Um, but yeah, it sucks that he got hurt in the Hall of Fame game. I honestly, even when I was watching it, I didn't realize he got hurt. but watching Hard Knocks, I was able to see that he got hurt, and I'm sad for him. That sucks. Oh, the other thing that you guys didn't mention that I thought was great and really added the human element to Hard Knocks and football that we forget about sometimes is Austin Reed's family reacting to the three passes that he made. And I know we were all happy that the game got canceled when the lightning hit because no one really likes to see games when they get boring. But we forget that these people that those snaps may have been are the only time that Austin Reed might actually have this preseason to show a lot. So it was nice to see that Austin Reed's family cared. Obviously, his family's going to care, but like it was nice to see that. That was a nice moment.
And then one last thing before we wrap up, the DJ Moore segment where they called him in, they're like, hey, we'll give you this 4 million or 4 year, $110 million contract. And he was like, cool. Like he wasn't, overly excited. He wasn't bragging about being the highest paid Bear in team history. And it just really shows that we're building the right culture and we're bringing in the right guys. For DJ Moore, yes, like we didn't really have an option because the Panthers, it was from the whole Panthers trade, but at the same time, so incredibly lucky to have a guy like Moore in the building, especially after having Mooney as our wide receiver one for like I think a season or two, but just the way how Foles has really tore this team down and rebuilt it, bringing in the right guys, and giving team friendly contracts is a huge thing, especially because when we had Ryan Pace, it was just like, trade for this guy, give him like the most money guaranteed or whatever. And we were still paying like Danny Trevathan for like the next couple seasons, even though he was not on the team, which is like, it's pretty annoying, but just a really cool moment for Moore and a really nice way to end that episode.
No, I completely agree. It's been great to see Poles being able to hand out contracts like that to players that have shown that they're reliable and they're top of their positions, like Cole Kmet and Jalen Johnson. So here's to many more contracts, hopefully from future Bears players.
I also, to add on to the contract thing, it was cool to see DJ Moore come up for a couple minutes during practice and then go straight back to practice like nothing happened. Also, sort of celebrating that with Keenan Allen, I just think their chemistry is great. They were funny. The first episode of Hard Knocks was great. I'm excited to see the rest of the season, the rest of the episodes. I mean, no one really knows what's going to be on it now because they're recording still, and it's going to be whatever happens in the next week is on. But that is the end of the meat for our first episode. We plan to bring you guys an episode once every week, especially when the season starts. We're definitely doing that. But thank you guys for listening. You can find me on Twitter at Joe__Grassano.
And then you can find me, Isaac, on Twitter. My handle is Last Word on Bears.
You can find me on Twitter at Eli Grimes, at Eli_Grimes01.
See you guys next time.